What's going on, Steelers Nation? This is the Black and Gold Report. On today's show, we're going to discuss the wide receivers that the Pittsburgh Steelers have coming into camp, who I think is going to make the roster, how many players from the wide receiver room I think that the Steelers take on the 53-man roster, and what we're looking at as far as competition for the slot receiver spot, outside receivers, all that kind of stuff on today's show. Before we get started, I am your host of the Black and Gold Report. My name is Kyle, and I'm going to take you through this. And before we get started, I ask you to just hit that subscribe button and like button, and we'll get rolling. First of all, we have a good many receivers coming into camp at Latrobe next week. I think it's going to be a lot of competition. We have some really talented guys in the camp this year, and that's a big difference that we didn't have last year. We had some competition, but I think we're a lot better in that room than we were last year as far as talent. We have our mainstays like DK Metcalf, Roman Wilson, which is, I wouldn't say he's a mainstay, but he did have some playing time last year. Ben Skowronek, and I'm not going to count Darnell Washington or Freiermuth because they're tight ends, so we'll get to them in the tight end preview. But the new addition this year is Michael Pittman Jr. I think that is a very complimentary piece to DK Metcalf because as last year, if you watch the tape, a lot of people put a safety over the top of DK and doubled him a lot, and we had to run a lot of quick game stuff with him because they were not letting him get down the field for the most part. With Michael Pittman Jr., people cannot do that as much because they've got two guys that can be a number one wide receiver in the NFL. If you do that, then one's going to be wide open, and you can't afford to let that happen. So I feel like Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be a very good complementary piece to DK and vice versa. So that is very good. Some of the guys that we have not heard a whole lot about as far as who's coming into camp is, you got a Cole Burgess, you got a A.T. Perry, you got a Levi Wentz, Brandon Smith, Caden Wedgen. You've heard of Roman Wilson. He had a little bit of playing time last year, but his issue was he had a lot of trouble on the outside getting off of press man coverage, which I don't think he's an outside guy. I think he's a bona fide slot guy, just based off his size, and that's going to help him, get better releases if he's on the inside. And I think that's going to be more toward what Mike McCarthy does with him is put him on the inside. Him and Jeremy Bernard ought to have a heck of a battle at camp, trying to solidify that slot receiver spot. Let's get to some of these new guys. Brandon Smith, which is probably my favorite of the guys trying to fight for a roster spot. I had a chance to see him train in person this summer a couple of times. And let me just say, he's going to impress some of you guys at camp. He is really toned in, and I feel like he does have a chance to make this roster. And some of you, like I said in my last video, some of you might look kind of sideways at that, but I really do believe he has a chance to make this roster. From what I heard out of OTAs, him and A-Rod jailed a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does in camp and by trying to make this roster. I do think that, Ben Skowronek, I think, is a lock at this point because he and A-Rod are so close and they connected a lot last season. So I feel like that's going to be a pivotal spot that he's kind of got a leg up in. And I feel like he makes the roster along with DK, Michael Pittman Jr., and Roman Wilson. Jeremy Bernard, I do think, makes the roster just because the Steelers front office loves him so much. And I feel like he's very good at getting off of press man coverage, getting good releases, and that's something that you have to have on the outside and inside zone when they run that nickel package. When they pull that nickel corner up and try to play in their face, the slot's face, I think that's going to be good. Looking at Jeremy Bernard, his last year at Alabama was he caught 64 passes for 862 yards, 13 and a half yards per reception. He had 7 touchdowns, and I think that is a solid, final year of college. I mean, yes, a lot of, you look at players that came out of college like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, back when they came out, they were 1,000-yard receivers. But if you go back and watch his college tape, like, he was very efficient. And he was a mismatch in the slot just because of his size. Like, Jeremy Bernard is a type of player that puts linebackers in a bind if you line him up inside and you expect them to cover somebody of his stature and speed and ball skills. I think that's going to bode well for him in camp. I mean, that's what I think gives him a leg up on Roman Wilson as far as the number one slot guy, other than Ben Skoranek, is his size. You can't coach that. You can't teach that, as we all know. It creates mismatches. I love Roman Wilson, but I mean, there's nothing you can do about, your counterpart that you're going up against, being that size. Looking at him, he's 6'1", he's listed at 6'1", 206 pounds. He's entering his rookie season. And from what I'm hearing from the OTAs that we had back in June, he had a really solid, couple practices to where I feel like he has a leg up making the roster, just for the simple fact of he's a mismatch. And but we're going to see in training camp. I mean, the Steelers have a lot of battles in training camp. Like, if you go back and watch my last video about the quarterbacks, there's a lot of battles there, So a lot of these position previews, there's a lot of battles. There's not really a position, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that doesn't have battles everywhere. Especially, right side of the offensive line. Running backs a little bit more clear as far as you kind of know who's going to make that roster. Compared to, other position battles. I think that when you look at what the Steelers are wanting to do, if you look at Mike McCarthy, his offense is a lot more pass heavy than what we've been used to in the Mike Tomlin era. So I feel like, we're going to throw it a lot more, which means they may or may not take more wide receivers on this roster just for the simple fact of keeping people fresh. You want people fresh at the end of the year. You want people ready to go. If you look at some of these other guys like A.T. Perry, he is a second-year guy out of Wake Forest. He's listed at 6'5", 205. That's another big body. So you kind of see what the Steelers are looking for in receivers. They want big body guys that can run, which I love that too. Like, when he was with the Saints in 2023, he started 3 games. He had 12 receptions for 246 yards and averaged 20 and a half yards per reception and had 4 touchdowns. He played in 10 regular season games between the Saints and Denver, which he was with in last year. And, I think that this is another guy that has a really good chance just because of his size, and it looks like the Steelers are looking for that size in what they want in a receiver, which is why I like Brandon Smith so much, is because Brandon Smith is another big body guy that's 6'2", 220, who is another mismatch. They all complement DK Metcalf in a way that, you can't coach that. They just have it or they don't. And I'm excited to see how the Steelers go about installing this offense and how much pass heavy they are compared to years past. And I know they're going to be, just knowing and seeing Mike McCarthy teams in the past with Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. I just see he wants to throw the ball. Now, I know that, you got to be able to run it too, like in the NFL, to win. But you got to be really balanced. And I feel like, having these big time receiver bodies in camp and on the roster is going to help us in the passing game and run game, as far as, blocking schemes and, being able to block on the perimeter with receivers. Only helps you with having those big body guys. Like I was saying earlier, Brandon Smith, I've seen him train this summer. He looks awesome. Crazy, twitchy, long, work ethic out the wazoo. That's why he's been around the NFL for years, even though he hasn't had his mainstay on the main roster. He has been a practice squad player and been called up numerous times with the Jets and the Patriots most recently. And I think Pittsburgh may be a great spot for him. Super nice guy, works hard, is in the weight room and the field as much as he can. From talking to him, I feel like, he has as good a chance as any of the guys trying to make this roster to make it. He's not going to give you any trouble. He's not going to, do anything that he's not supposed to do. Like, I feel like he's going to put everything he can into this. And just talking to him, he's so excited to be a part of this Steelers organization. And I'm excited to see what he does in training camp starting next week in Latrobe. And I do think he has a great shot to make this roster. When we go to Ben Skowronek, he's 6'3", 224. So you see the trend here with the size that I was talking about. Last year he had 4 receptions for 69 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 17.2 yards a reception. What I like about Skowronek is a very close friend of Aaron Rodgers, and I've seen training videos with them. And, watching the film from last year, like they are a cohesive unit. And I'm excited to see that. But you see the trend, like McCarthy apparently wants big body receivers and create mismatches down the field so he can throw vertically. Last year the Steelers did a lot of quick game over the middle, quick slants, because they didn't have complementary pieces in the wide receiver room opposite DK to where teams could just scheme to stop DK, and they felt comfortable with putting their other guys on islands with our other receivers because we didn't have complementary pieces in a depth standpoint that we needed to have. And I feel like the Steelers are headed in that direction of having those complementary pieces, and you're going to see it in camp coming up this week that are going to complement him and the vertical pass threat and scheme that McCarthy wants to run this year, and building that system into the Pittsburgh era that he's in. He's a 6-year guy. He's a vet now, and I just feel like he's a lock at this point, in my opinion. I know that's probably a lot of your opinion. He's a lock because he stayed on it all last year, but I do think out of the receivers that were brought in or undrafted free agents or anything like that, I do think that Brandon Smith probably has the best chance to make that roster just because of his sheer size and speed and ball skills. I think A.T. Perry has a good chance. Brandon can play special teams too, along with some of these other guys. That's why I lean towards him making it and having a good chance. He's versatile. He can do multiple things. So A.T. Perry, I think. Roman Wilson, I think, is going to make it. I mean, just off the simple fact of he was up some last year. So, last year he had 12 receptions for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns and averaged 13.8 yards per reception. I think that the Steelers have put so much in him and hyped him up so much. I think he's going to make it. Now, he's a smaller guy than the rest of them. It looks like he's 5'10", 186, which is more of a slot guy, which I don't see him. I don't think he needs to be on the outside, because when he's 5'10", 186 going up against a 6'3", 6'4 corner, he's going to have a hard time getting off press man. That's where Jeremy Bernard is. I think has a leg up on him just because he's bigger and has better releases off of that. But I do think the Steelers are set up. I'm interested to see, the cohesiveness when they put who can look efficient with whoever the quarterback is in the game at Latrobe. Like whether it's A-Rod, whether it's Will Howard, whether it's Drew Aller, Mason Rudolph, who looks good with anybody they put out there throwing it to them. And that's going to be the telltale sign. Who stands out as far as making plays in contested situations? That's the NFL. Every pass, unless you have a bunch of coverage, is going to be contested. That's just the nature of the game. And it should be that way. It's the highest level in football. But the Steelers are known for being hard-nosed, gritty players. And that's what I'm looking for. Who shows that grittiness that the Steelers are known for? Who shows that hard-nosed, blue-collar mentality that the Steelers organization is built on? And that's who's going to make this roster. Not the guy who's, gets in their fields and all that. And I know there's some on there. We always have those guys. But who is the guy that's like, I want to work my behind off and put everything out there, and when I get knocked down, I'm getting back up. And I think, you're going to get that with a Brandon Smith. You're going to get that with a number of these guys. But I feel like that the Steelers are set up in a positive way at the wide receiver position. And I feel like we're going to have a lot better mentality as far as being able to throw the ball vertically because we have those complementary pieces like I said earlier. And I do think that we are night and day better as far as on paper and talent-wise than we were last year. And this system that McCarthy's bringing in is not – it's not going to be as heavy, 13 personnel, 3 tight ends on the field, the Arthur Smith type of offense. It's going to be more, pass-heavy. And if you want an insight on what it could look like, just go look at the Dallas games and the Green Bay games when he was there, and especially go look at the ones in Green Bay when Rodgers was there, when McCarthy was still there. That's going to give you an insight on what it's going to look like for the Steelers going into camp. And I am so looking forward to this, and I can't wait to see it. That's going to do it for today's show. Next up, I'm either going to do my tight ends or the offensive line as far as my position previews. Then we're going to get to defense. I do appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. This team is so special to me, and I love covering this team and I cannot wait for next week for training camp. It's going to be an awesome few weeks, and especially when the preseason games start and all of that stuff. And I can't wait to see this new system and new coaching staff and culture start to take shape in Pittsburgh. And I've got nothing but high hopes that McCarthy's going to bring us another Lombardi to the Burgh. And I do appreciate you guys. Again, don't forget, leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we'll talk to you next time. Here we go.